So it's with great pleasure I call upon our first speaker, Dr. Roger Genet, who is Director General of the French Agency for Food, Environmental and Occupational Health and Safety, which throughout the afternoon will be called ANSES. Dr. Genet has been the Director General of Research and Innovation at the Ministry of Research since March 2012 and a former President of the National Alliance for Environmental Research. He is also a scientist who has worked for more than a decade on research and expertise policy in support of public policy making in the area of health, agriculture and the environment. Dr. Roger will be speaking on the legal and instrumental background of food safety in Europe and the role of ANSES in Europe. And with that, please join us.
Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, dear Patricia, dear Jürgen, thank you very much for the organization of this seminar. I'm very glad and very honored to be here today with you for this short presentation. Professor Subra Suresh has perfectly summarized the objectives of food safety to increase confidence of consumers all over the world in the food we consume, and also to increase the health and in the world. And so we plan to make this visit to Singapore. It's the first time for me in Singapore. I heard a lot about the fantastic growth of Singapore and the science in Singapore during the 15 last years. And I'm very glad to have the opportunity to make this visit in your lab. Thank you very much. And also to speak with you and to exchange and to make this short presentation of the European and French system which has been put in place at the end of the 90s. So my presentation will just focus on a few words about ANSES activities and ANSES missions, and my colleagues will speak this afternoon about the genome sequencing and the use of WGS for genomics in food safety, more particularly. So coming back to ANSES and the role of ANSES in Europe, so I can push it by this way. Thank you. Bad trip. No. Okay. ANSES has been created in 2010, but it results from the fusion of two preceding agencies. AFSA, which is an agency for food safety, which has been created in 1998, just after the mad cow crisis in Europe, and AFSET, which had been created in 2002, which is the French agency for environmental safety and occupational health. And the fusion of these two agencies in 2010 led to ANSES, which has a very broad spectrum of activities between food, environmental, occupational health and safety. ANSES is an independent agency which is accountable for 5 ministries. We have a special contract of objective which these 5 ministries, Ministry of Health, Agriculture, Environment, Consumer Protection and Labor. So it's a broad activity, and it's a clear separation between the role of risk manager, which is the role of the ministries, and the role of risk assessor, which is in France and in Europe in generally linked to the role of specific agency. When we look at a simplified scheme of the landscape in France, we have a clear separation between 3 roles: a role of risk manager, the ministries, a risk assessor with different type of agencies for exposure to food, environment, occupational health, it's the role of ANSES, public health, it's Public Health France, human drugs, which are evaluated by a specific agency, an agency for cancer research, an agency for radio protection, and research, production of new knowledges and data, which are the role of research institute and universities. And we work closely together between universities, research institute, and agencies to produce the assessment and expertise. The missions of ANSES are to contribute to ensure human health and safety in the fields of food, environment, occupational health, and it includes animal health and welfare and plant protection. And the role and the different missions, when you go from the left part, bottom of the slide, is to conduct, coordinate, and initiate research projects. We have our own laboratories. To conduct laboratory reference missions. To conduct surveillance, monitoring, alert, and vigilance missions, toxicovigilance, phytopharmacovigilance, pharmacovigilance of veterinary drugs, and to conduct risk assessment in our field of competence, which are broad, to recommend public health measures to the public authorities, to evaluate the safety and efficacy of veterinary drugs, phytopharmaceutics products, fertilizers, biocide products, which depend on different regulations in Europe, and to deliver marketing authorizations to the industries, and finally, to provide training and information and to contribute to public debate in these different matters. So, to put in place this expertise and these different activities, we have 4 core values. The first one is the independence of expertise and impartiality. And we built a code of conduct, an independent committee with stakeholders can solicit. We built collegial and multidisciplinary scientific panels, prevention of conflict of interest with a specific committee to prevent conflict of interest, and only public funding. We do not accept private funding. Second core values, it's transparency. We have a completely transparent assess process. All our opinions are published on our website. We take into consideration minority opinions which are reported in our opinions. We make public declarations for all the staff of the agency, but also all the experts which are involved in the assessment process. We also, it's just the fundamental, built this expertise on scientific excellence of scientific expertise with an open calls for application of experts to the process. And finally, we built an access to stakeholders which with a charter on the openness of expertise to society and with dialogue committees with all stakeholders which are regularly organized. The organization of the agency is built on 4 pillars. The first one is General Affairs Division, Legal Affairs, and 3 scientific pillars, which are led by one of my delegate Director General. The first one is Regulated Product Division, which is in charge of delivering marketing authorization after a process of evaluation. And this process of evaluation is built on the regulations at the European level for each of the different kind of products. Second pillar, expertise, risk assessment through collective expertise involving panels, more than 25 panels of experts which are external to the agency, about 900 experts which are mobilized by the agency, and we produce approximately 250 opinions each year. And finally, the 4th pillar, which is led by Gilles Salva, who is here today and will make a presentation. It's 9 laboratories on animal health, plant protection, and food safety, which conduct reference and research activities. So the key strategic axes of the agency are food safety and nutrition, environmental health, occupational health, animal health and welfare, and veterinary medicine, and plant health and protection. But finally, we built a matricial organization with 6 transversal axes to strengthen the coordination between the 3 pillars. Evaluation of regulated products, risk assessment, and research and references. And these 6 axes, which are led by a scientific director, each one: plant health, food safety, animal health, but also antimicrobial resistance, epidemiology and surveillance, and exposure and toxicology of chemical contaminants. The key figures, staff, it's about 1,400 people, permanent. We have 900 external experts which are solicited in the different panels and working group. We have our laboratories are spread out in 16 locations in France, close to directly to the industries. We have a global budget of 135 million, but 8 million per year are used to support calls for research projects, in particular in the field where we have no laboratories, environmental health, occupational health. So we have 3 years calls to directly fund research projects. And we published approximately 250 opinions per year, but also 4,000 administrative decisions for marketing authorization for the different kind of products. So at the European level, we have many contacts because we have the European agencies which are specialized. EFSA is the authority for food safety, animals and plants. We have a specific agency for medicine, veterinary drugs and human drugs. We have a specific agency for chemical products with the REACH regulation, in charge of the REACH regulation, an agency for environment, an agency for occupational health, and infectious human diseases. So the field of ANSES led us to cooperate with each of the different agencies at the European level, and the competencies are shared between the European level and the member state level for each of these different topics. And we have also, at the bottom of the slide, reinforced cooperations with the member states, 28 member states, and the agency of the different member states. And we have very close cooperation with BFR and DTU in Denmark in particular. And we developed cooperation, scientific cooperation, exchange for expertise and experts. We also work at the international level with the World Organization for Animal Health, with the World Health Organization, with the Food and Agriculture Organization, with all the agencies in the world, FDA. We have a lot of different cooperations. We have also a lot of reference mandates, in particular for pathogens in food safety and also pathogen in animal health and plant health. So we have 8 reference mandates for the European Union. We have international mandates and we have national mandates. And we perhaps will speak about more in detail about these reference activities. This focusing in particular on this mission of reference, research, surveillance, which is one of the topics today. These activities are conducted in our 9 laboratories on food safety, animal health, plant health, and they contribute to surveillance of animal health and expert assessment in food safety, animal health and plant health. And it ensures a territorial presence of the laboratories close to the field to anticipate and to detect emergencies and health problems on all the territory of France, and also to maintain a position in the main region of production corresponding to the sectors concerned by the reference activity of the laboratories. Finally, we have 4 development priorities. One is to detect and to characterize pathogens and contaminants, strains, metabolites, biological effects, etc. To develop knowledge of pathogens and contaminants, host pathogen, pathogenicity, matrix contaminants interaction, and we are really interested to develop these new technologies to increase our efficiency in this domain. Also, we support epidemiological surveillance platforms, and we need high-level training through research. And the objective of an agency such as ANSES is to anticipate future needs in terms of knowledge, reference and risk assessments to guarantee the credibility and reliability of the French health system. We have many collaborations with different parts of the world, different institutes in the world to assess these missions at the European level, in North America, in Africa, in Asia, and different networks, international networks on different topics. Epizone, it's on infectious diseases. MedVetNet, it's a cooperation with all the institutes in charge of veterinary drugs and in a One Health concept, etc. And to just end up and to conclude, because I have a very short time, but I will be present to answer to your questions. We try to be really active as a European level to develop and to sustain research projects in Horizon 2020, which is the program of research at the European Commission. EFSA, also the authority of food safety, the European Authority for Food Safety, developed different type of projects in zoonoses, in antimicrobial resistance, in toxicokinetics, and so on. We also lead different health program of the DG Health of the European Commission, or joint programming initiative like antimicrobial resistance. It's a joint programming initiative at the European level, and other actions where our teams are involved. The few examples of our projects which are under progress. Euromix, it's a specific program at the European level to evaluate and to assess mixture of multiple chemicals and to develop models to take into consideration the combined effect of different metabolites or chemicals in the model of assessment. SOSFANS for metrics, models, and foresight for European sustainable food and nutrition security. We also compare is a European program in genomics, which the goal is to detect, to develop a platform to detect and analyze emerging and foodborne outbreaks in Europe. And HBM for EU, it's the goal is a biomonitoring initiative and to coordinate and advance human biomonitoring in Europe. Other kind of projects, Eurobiotox, POSH bees for bees, health of bees. Valitest is a validation of diagnostic tests to support plant health. One Health is a very large European joint programming involving 44 different institutions in Europe. In the field of foodborne zoonosis, it's a 90 million euro program for the next 5 years, which is coordinated by ANSES. And finally, we have also new projects at the European level. It's just a non-exhaustive list of programs. It's just to give you an overview of the implication of such an agency, which has a role of regulation and to evaluate and to make an independent risk assessment in all the fields of the agency, but also to develop competencies and research, which is the basis of the development of expertise directly inside the agency, and to make possible the implication of our scientists in research projects to develop their competencies. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm sure we will have the time to discuss in a few minutes. Thank you.
We can take a couple of questions now if there's some urgent ones. We do have time for questions and answers as a block subsequently, but if there's a specific question or two, we can accommodate it now. Start. Okay, then we'll roll it over.
Later.
Yes, exactly. Give you time to think about it and put it in perspective with our next speaker as well.